Hi everybody, it's me, Mommy Onami. This video is called the 7 core traumas that every single person has. And when every single person has something, we call it an objective rule or an objective teaching. That means it extends to more people than just yourself. So every single person in the world, your rich homies, your broke homies, and you will all experience these 7 core traumas, and this is what you can do to set them right. So a little bit about me, how I know this. My name is Mommy Onami. I grew up in a doomsday sex cult called the Children of God, and I had a lot of issues as a result of that. But I became a bartender when I was really young. And after many, many years of listening to so many people tell me their problems in dive bars and ritzy art restaurants and all kinds of places, I started to realize that whether people were rich or poor, they all kept coming into these same issues. So let's start from the bottom and work our way up. The first trauma that everyone will get is fear. You were not born in a state of fear. It is something that came to you. When something negative or an ouchy feeling comes to you and creates a pattern in your life, we call that a trauma. So the first trauma, or the block of the root chakra, is called fear. Now in the West, we have been conditioned with a lot of Christianity, and the fear of God has morphed into this massive guilt that people carry around. So in other countries or in other cultures where the fear of the devil is not so big, people don't have this sense of guilt where every wrong thing they've ever done is going to come and bite them in the ass, and God's going to be angry at them and they're going to get sent to hell and all of that. This is a uniquely Western phenomenon. So guilt and fear are kind of two expressions of the same thing. Fear of the devil translates into, well, what did I do to get the devil so mad at me? And every mistake that you've ever made in your life, you start to look at it and say, oh, fuck, that's it. That's where it's coming from. So the first trauma, and how do you know if you have this block? How do you know if you have this trauma? Well, you cannot stabilize in your life. You literally cannot get your needs met. You are the type of person who's always scrambling to pay their bills. You're the type of person that's always in a state of chaos. It's just a shit show. You cannot stabilize. Things are really uncomfortable for you in your life. It feels like, what's going on? Where is God? Why does God hate me so much? And that's how you know that you have that first one. The second one is actually in the second chakra. And this is the trauma of shame. And shame is believing, guilt and fear is I'm not safe because something happened. There's something that you can relate it to. Everybody gets that first trauma because they didn't feel safe at some point in their life. We're talking about the root here. When they didn't feel safe at some point in their life, they explained it to themselves saying, oh, it must not be safe to be here. It must not be safe to be here. This earth is not a safe place. And maybe it's because I'm not supposed to be here. And I feel guilt about that. Maybe I'm an oops baby. Maybe I was, removed via C-section and I didn't get a chance to be born. So I just feel like I woke up here on earth and everything's wrong. And where's my mommy? And that's a feeling of fear. But you weren't born with it. You got it pretty early on. That second block is shame. And shame, instead of thinking it's not safe to be here, it's just it's not safe to be me, who I am. There's nothing that you did. There's nothing that you did that you can relate it to, oh, why am I such a bad person? Or why do I think that things are never going to work out? It's just this deep, unquestioned conviction that who you are is broken, that how you are is wrong, and that God just hates you, or the universe just hates you, because there must be something wrong with how you naturally are. So whether people are rich, poor, in a stable home or a crappy home or whatever, they will experience this trauma of just believing that there's just something wrong with how they naturally are. And how you would know if you had this block is when you can get your needs met, but you can never get more. The world of pleasure, which sits on top of needs, the world of more than enough as opposed to just enough, this is a world that you cannot access. And you see people all around you accessing it, getting theirs, raising their standards, raising their income levels, raising their quality of life, always able to get more than just the bare minimum, yet somehow you are not able to penetrate that barrier. And when you see other people doing it and you can't, you start to explain it to yourself, oh, there just must be something wrong with me. There must just be something wrong with me, with how I am. I was just born bad. Now, if you've ever experienced any kind of sexual abuse, sexual trauma, because this block, this trauma sits in the second chakra, and everybody, you know, without that first foundation of fear, you wouldn't have a good foundation for shame. They all stack one on top of the other, and everybody has them. But the good news is that, like, because everybody has them, it's like very easy to clear these things. It's just you have to know where to look, and you have to know how to take it out, and you have to know the right time to do it. Because if you have those things, it's really easy. But if you don't have these things, it's really frustrating. So these are the things that I teach in my teacher training, because it's like, it makes being a coach so easy when you're not worried that you're just like telling people your story and hoping it works out for them, because it'll really only work for people with a similar story to yours. But when you have an objective method, like, you can talk to literally anyone about anything and heal it, because you know the taste of that block, and you know how to move that block because you've been trained in the method. So that's what I do. I'm very special and I'm very good at that. So, all right. So the next block, but if you've ever had any kind of sexual drama or trauma, just rest assured that you are going to have to work harder in this block than anybody who didn't experience that. Also, let's say you're gay and that wasn't allowed where you were growing up, but you've always known that you were gay. You are going to have to work shame harder than somebody who was always encouraged to be the exact way that they are. Now, this doesn't mean that you're extra broken. It just means that when things aren't working out in your life, it's probably that same pesky shame block again. So instead of being like, oh, it's just not fair. Look, the people that don't have that block will have an excess in some other chakra. But because this is one where people are really resigned to just saying, oh, I guess I'm just broken, or I guess things are just going to not work out for me, instead of actually working the block over and over again. If you have any kind of sexual drama or trauma, or feel any kind of like who you are is not allowed, especially when it comes to your sexual orientation, you just need to work this harder. You need to stop crying about why you have to work it harder, and just every time something is not lining up in your life, you're gonna be like, is this rooting back to shame in some way? So the next trauma that every single person will get is in the Manipura chakra, the color yellow. And how you know when you have this block is anxiety. You like cannot stop worrying. You just don't, some people are like, oh yeah, the universe loves you. You're safe. You're loved. But you just cannot stop worrying. And it's not like, that it's, you're like, yeah, okay, my body is in a safe place, and like my life looks good. I'm able to get more than enough somehow, but I just can't enjoy it because I'm literally just in a chronic state of anxiety. I swear, my negative imagination comes up, takes me on this fucking chaos ride, and it doesn't matter where I physically am, because mentally I'm in a chronic state of turmoil, and it's literally terrible, and I hate my life, and I don't want everything I love, it's going to leave me. And it's actually like anxiety is taking the two worst case scenarios of fear and shame and just I call it the naked skydiver. I've taught this workshop so many times. We always call anxiety the naked skydiver, because if you've ever seen a video of guys skydiving naked, it's just like this. And this is what anxiety feels like, just bouncing back and forth between those worst case scenarios, flopping around between the worst case scenarios of guilt and shame, and extending those worst case scenarios out to everything and everyone that you love. And how most of us try to cope with this anxiety is through exerting control. And control is what the balance of that chakra would look like, but it's self-control and not trying to control everything outside of the self. It's self-control because you have a clear idea of who you are. You have your identity. You have your I am presence, which you hear the spiritual community talking about. You're no longer like a legion of personalities that don't get along with each other. You have a presence, and you say, look, I'm here. What I say I'm going to do, I do. And even if obstacles come, like, I don't need to worry about the obstacles that are, surely going to be encountered in my life. I trust that whatever it is, I'm going to be able to handle it in the moment. But when you are trying to manage anxiety with control, it only gets worse and worse, because you can't control anything outside of you. You can only control yourself, and you cannot control yourself when you're in a chronic state of anxiety, because there's so many different, because you don't know who you are. How can you control yourself if you don't know who you are? And when you have anxiety, you're like as many possible personalities as you can be all popping up and saying, me, I'm the real you. What about this terrible scenario? What about this terrible scenario? And that's why in order to move through that block, you have to get really good at IDing these anxieties and being like, who are, I know, everyone's friends with the owner. Who are you? Okay, no, you're not allowed in. You're not allowed in. And this is the method that we teach. So after that, the trauma that every person will get is being a slave for the approval of others. Being a slave for the approval of others. And what's actually like at the root of this, inauthenticity, performing, never being yourself, is what's actually at the root of this is grief, which is common to call depression now. Like after this story, has gone on and on of like, it's not safe to be here. It's not safe to be me. No one anywhere in my life is safe. That starts to sink into this type of resolve, this depression. You took in so many impressions, false impressions from those lower 3 chakras or those lower 3 traumas, that it created a big depression in your heart where you just have a worldview that says, I'm just not supposed to be happy, but everyone else around me is happy. I can't argue with that. I see, so I need to fake it, or I need to, instead of getting to the root of the sadness and realizing that the only thing keeping that false narrative alive is just lies, and it's not your fault. It's not like you're lying to yourself. It's just that really painful things happened to you when you were really young and nobody explained it to you, like, hey, this is the first time you're feeling fear and it's creating a pattern that's going to be with you for life. You just explained it to yourself, like, oh, I guess it's just not safe to be here on earth. And like, you've never checked that. You've never checked that. Like, you are living in a manual that you wrote when you were really, really young and you've never updated, and nobody can update it for you. And as a result, it's like if I tell you to go to the pantry and get things to make spaghetti, you only see the thing, you're not going to be like, oh, wow, tuna. Unless, you're going to be like, oh, I'm making spaghetti. So I'm looking for tomato sauce and I'm looking for noodles. And you see the things that are relevant to the story, relevant to the task. And so when you have a story that says it's just not safe to be here, you only see things that support that. When you have a story that says it's not safe to be me, like, you only see things that support that. And so when so many of these have gone unchecked, and this happens to everybody, you naturally get this huge sense of grief. And because we're not taught how to be with that sadness, we feel like, oh my God, if I dip a toe in that sadness, I'm just going to be sad forever. I've tried controlling it, yet the sadness comes up. So what am I going to do? I'm going to pretend. I'm going to pretend. I'm going to say things I don't really mean. I'm going to do things that I don't really want to do. I'm going to pretend to be okay when I'm not, because my life is just supposed to be sad. And how I'm backing up this story is all of those anxieties that we've listed so far in this video. And it moves me to tears every time thinking about how hurt everybody is in their heart, because I know what it's like to be really hurt in my heart. And I'm telling you, like, when I first started tapping into this technology, I started getting flown to different parts of the world to work with people who were like really, really rich, investing in MAPS, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Research. I was introduced to this whole world of like really rich people, politicians, artists who had just like tons and tons of trauma and were not able to heal it in any way that could ever go public. And so carrying around like so much pain and so much suffering, and just being told like, you are not allowed to ever let this problem out. You better clear it as fast as you can, as privately as you can, because we have a family name to uphold. And I was like, damn, y'all are fucked up. I thought I was fucked up little doomsday cult baby with every kind of fucking rape, molesting, kind of sexual abuse that you could put on a person. I thought I was fucked up. Y'all are fucked up. So that was nice. That was nice. But the nice thing about an objective method is that whoever it is, it works. So the next trauma that everybody is going to have is the trauma of jealousy, the trauma in the Vishuddha chakra. And this is the one that everybody doesn't know they have, which is why it's so important to like do a system where you're working every single block and objectively removing it, because there's the blocks that you know about, but the ones that you don't know about are the ones that really get you, because you just never go looking for it. Like if you were to look up like the search terms, there's so many people that want to heal their Svadhisthana chakra, but like nobody that wants to, and want to hear they want to heal their sex center, and they want to heal their fucking third eye center, but no one wants to open their heart. No one wants to work the Vishuddha. Nobody knows what the fuck the Manipura is. So it's really important that you do them all, because it's the unconscious blocks that are probably holding you back the worst. So jealousy is what comes up when you, like, after this child has been trying, oh my God, it's not safe to be here. It's not safe to be me. No one anywhere is safe. My life is supposed to be sad. There's that fucking one friend of yours who just seems to sail through life. And it's so crazy. It's like you want the thing and she gets the thing, and you're like, why her and not me? And your little child brain just cannot handle this when you feel jealousy for the first time. So you explain it to yourself like this: she has it, so you're not going to have it. Now, that's really not true, because her getting it is supposed to be a sign to you that you can get it. But when you have all of these traumas, just like everybody else in the world, it's not like you're extra broken. You see every sign that the universe is trying to give you, that like help is on the way, your life is going to be great, and you fucking poison it. You poison it and say, she's going to have it. Just because she has it, I'm never going to have it. Now that's a lie. But then what you do on top of that lie is you start trying to convince yourself you don't want it because you think it'll make you feel better. And then it sucks, because if someone tells you, oh, you're jealous, you're like, no, I'm not. And it's just that's what I mean about an unconscious block. Even if somebody was to come to you and be like, hey, you'll be like, no, this is not my problem. And you just brush it off. They say in esotericism that the stone discarded is the cornerstone. The stone where you're like, this thing has nothing to do with me, is actually what's upholding every single block of yours and desperately needs to be looked at. But what you most need to find is where you least want to look. And so this is why we go looking together, hand in hand, the whole way through, you and I. So I love this workshop so much. I've taught it. This will be my 6th time teaching it, and the first time where I'm teaching it as an express, where if you're not interested in having a career in coaching, we can just remove all of your blocks in one day and then give you a Kundalini awakening to make sure that your prana and your creativity and your sexual energy is moving up and down the way that it's supposed to, and you start to awaken really fast. So you literally awaken like that. So but the thing is that when you try to move that energy, when there's blocks in all of these places, and everybody has blocks until they've been removed. Sometimes you can remove one on accident, but if you're, like in ayahuasca or something like that, but you can't repeat it. And actually, whenever something occurs by accident, wherever reason occurs on accident, it'll eventually destroy itself. So like, let's say you released your shame once and then it came back around. If you released it once with ayahuasca, it came back around, and now you're trying to do it again. It doesn't work, so you do it again. It doesn't work, so you do it again, until you completely destroy your faith that something like that would work at all. So whenever reason is a universal law, you live under 48 laws on planet Earth. One of these is that wherever reason occurs on accident, it eventually destroys itself. So you have to find a way where you can do the thing and then repeat it, because it's not like you open your chakras once, you remove your traumas once, and they never bother you again. You remove them, you become aware of what it feels like to be without them, and when they want to creep back in, this is life work that you're doing, but when they want to creep back in, you're like, I know what this is, and I know how to put it to the side again. Because life is not a static state. It's all about rebalancing and rebalancing. So when you know the taste of what it feels like to be in balance, you don't go off kilter so easy anymore. So so it's jealousy and envy and the thing. And if you have this block, and so how, in case I forgot to tell you this about the heart chakra, how you would have a block in the heart is if like you just can't do first of all, if you think that life is just supposed to be sad, or you're depressed, that's how you have a block there. But also if you are really, if every time you go to do something, you're just so worried about what other people will think, that's how you have a block in the heart chakra. No one can heal that but you. Anytime you do something for attention, anytime you do something for approval, anytime you do something for somebody else's love, try and earn their love, this is making your block in that area like literally so much worse. You would know that you have a issue in the Vishuddha chakra if you just fucking can't stop talking about what's wrong with other people in the world. If you are judging, you're jealous. And where I've gotten the question the most is like, well, what about when I'm judging people that fell on the other side of the dualistic political argument that had happened, 2020, 2021 is still going on now. Well, if you were jealous of people who were like, yeah, the government wants to protect us, they're doing the right thing, all of this coronavirus stuff is like, 100% right. If you were judging those people and calling them sheep and idiots, you're jealous of the people that aren't constantly feeling like the entire system, which is so much bigger than them, is out to get them. You're jealous of the like ignorance is bliss attitude that they have, which is working for them, and they're literally not getting in trouble for it. And if you're on the other side of that, where you're like, I just can't handle these like anti-vaxxers, these like people who are not going along with the narrative, you are so jealous that people can do things that are quote unquote so wrong, think so completely different than you, like literally challenge everything that you know to be true, and be really respected for it, and be really they were the people that were out there like, truthing in their own way. I'm not saying that is the truth. It was just their truth. To go against what the government narrative is, you're super jealous of their courage. You're super jealous of the fact that they don't give a fuck what other people think about them. They don't give a fuck about being quote unquote wrong to anybody that's ever picked up a newspaper in their life. So it always goes both ways. And if you were lucky enough to be in the role of the observer where you saw those two arguing and you said, hey, look at that, make America goth again word, then good for you. But I definitely got psyoped on it. And that's just because I grew up in a doomsday sex cult. And I literally thought that like it was the last days. And so these stories that, just because I teach a workshop on childhood trauma and know a lot about it, doesn't mean that I'm like impervious to the pains of life, that I'm impervious to like things will not stay balanced forever. And had I done my Wheels Reinvented that year like a good girl, I probably wouldn't have gotten it so bad, but some repressed memories came up and I didn't know how to deal with it. And now I do. So I'm teaching it. And when your repressed memories come up, I'll know how to deal with that too. Nothing scares me anymore, baby. You bring those dirty jobs to mommy. You bring those dirty jobs to me. Your daddy raped you. You bring it to mommy. I know how to fix all that. So the next block is the block of the third eye chakra. And this block is like, in how you know if you have this block is you just think you're crazy. You just think you're crazy. Like you have all of these ideas, but you just have no idea how you could possibly execute on them. So you're like, you just tell yourself you're crazy for having these visions. Sometimes you see the unseen, you see a vision for what it is you want to create, or the unknown, something about the way that the world is, but you never shared it. You're afraid to because you're just convinced that like the ideas that you have are crazy. And this is also where like what people call bipolar comes in. And it's like that swing between having the rush of creativity, which creates that manic high, and you let yourself go with it and you go, oh my God, I can do it. And then the like profound low that happens, which then sinks you down to the heart chakra, which makes you realize that like, just because it feels when you're in that third eye place like it's not going to be hard work to make it happen, like it's not going to be really challenging, doesn't mean that like when anything is your destiny, you're going to have to work really hard at it for a long time, and probably no one's going to come and save you. Like it's going to be, even if you had so many investors or all the things that you think you need to get it done, it's still going to be really challenging because it's your destiny. Like it's what you came here to deliver to the world. Like it's birth. It's not supposed and not, it's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be a challenge for you. It's supposed to be a challenge for you because who you become when you go through that challenge is somebody that cannot be moved. It's somebody unshakable. It's somebody that doesn't feel like everything's going to get ripped away from them because it's like, no, honey, like it didn't get just handed to me. Therefore, it can't just get taken away from me like that. But if you have a pattern in your life of, things come to you and then immediately get taken away, this is definitely what happens when you have an issue in that root chakra in the Muladhara with the issue of fear and guilt. You get the things that get taken away. You make the money, you spend the money. And then when it's the shame block, it's like you just can't get more than enough. You're in an income plateau that's been that way for a really long time. So that's how you know that you have a block in the Anya. And then the final block that everybody gets is, it's coming from the Sahasrara chakra, which isn't actually a chakra. It's the opening, which allows the energy to move out of you and not just stagnate going up and down the whole time. And this is when you just don't believe that the universe is friendly. You had an experience where you're like, oh my God, I guess God hates me. I guess there's no universal support for me. I guess you don't feel tapped into the flow of life. It's like you went with the flow of something, trusting that trust was betrayed, or you prayed with your whole heart for something to work out and it didn't work out. Therefore, you're like, there is no God. It's like, or there is a God and it hates me. And everybody has that in some level. And that foundation was prepped by all of these stories that you had up until that point. So the method for undoing these blocks is the same for all of them. You have to go to the root of the feeling and rewrite it in the appropriate way. I find that there's a method that works pretty well on all of them is going back to that first story and just observing it completely, which is as easy as it sounds, and like is also not as easy as it sounds. But for some of these more sticky blocks, I find that you want to really go in and rewrite the whole memory, how you wanted it to go. So this is what I teach in my teacher training. It would be a very long video, which would also be me giving away the gifts that I came here to teach to the world and have them value by paying for them. So I won't sit here for another hour and tell you exactly how to do the things that I've spent the last 10 years of my life mastering. But you can come to my teacher training, or at least to my free masterclass on August 2nd. If you're watching this video after August 2nd, we'll be enrolling this another time. You can go to Onami House, ONAMI, like on a mission, ONAMI, house, like a house that you live in.com, and just go and click Wheels Reinvented and sign up for the next round of that. Let me tell you, baby, I am very strong at drugs. So if you like getting fucked up, if you like feeling a result right away and saying, oh my God, this works. I know it works because what you're saying makes sense. When I do it, I feel different. And the more time that passes, since we had that experience, I'm able to relate my constantly increasing quality of life to the work that we did right there. And when we do it in an intensive, you're going to walk into the intensive one person and walk out a radically different person, a transformed person, not a changed person, a transformed person. And when you complete the teacher training, you're not only going to have that for yourself, but you're also going to have a very clear method, a very clear coaching package, a very clear skill that is valuable, that you can make a shit ton of money on, and you will know how to do this. So whether I see you in the teacher training or I see you in the intensive, I'm really looking forward to seeing you, because this doesn't exist anywhere else. I experienced a very painful, a very traumatic life. And for the first 30 years of my life, I was like, why did I have to go through this? Well, I went through this all because I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher and a healer that works with things that people thought that they'd never be able to overcome. And so when you bring your big diesel drama to me, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's no problem, after you've traumatized like God knows how many therapists, it feels real good. It feels real good to be able to come to someone like me that isn't scared of anything, because I've seen it all, baby. And you're going to be fine, just fine. It's seriously, the only thing that's blocking you is your own mind. But just because it's you blocking you doesn't mean it's easy to get you out of the way. So save your time by spending a little money with me, because let me tell you, it'll be the best goddamn money that you've ever spent in your life. And that's the gospel. I don't want to say the gospel truth, because that's not very true, but that's the truth. So my name is Mommy Onami. You can find me at Mommy Onami on Instagram. You can find me at Onami House, my website, and I will see you for the next video. Bye.